Hey everybody, this is Chaplain Rob, Message in the Park. I just wanted to drop this message to you guys. It's a beautiful day, and this is the lake in which I threw my sharpening machine in and pulled it out and put it on the stump, turned it on, and the thing was still working. So a lot of times people say, well, you shouldn't mix your Christian messages or your messages to churches and pastors and people in terms of that. Mix it with your business. And I says, Christ is all a part of my life. Whether it's in my life, personal life, my business life, my walk with Christ. I mean, it's all inclusive. So, in fact, a lot of times that's the problem with our society is a lot of guys aren't willing to take their Christian views and principles and bring it to work. And I think it'd make America a better place, make our world a better place, if everyone would do that, for ethics and everything else. I had an issue with, I didn't really have an issue with the Mariners had one with me. I still wear their shirt and their cap and everything, because you know what? I haven't given up on them. I know one thing in life is a constant, is change for people. But with God, things don't change. He doesn't change, so we can't. So I'm just giving a little message today on, a little bit about the woman caught in adultery. The Lord sat there, and they were going to stone her, and they were trying to tempt the Lord in this thing to say, according to the law, she is guilty as charged. She was caught in the very act of adultery. So in those days, today, like Kenton Bashore once said, he says, a lot of times, you may take nosedives into sin, but Jesus had a different, he says, anyone just look upon a woman with lust in their heart has committed adultery already in their heart. So with that thought in mind, with that standard, the Lord's standard, how many sex offenders are in your church or congregation or whatever, just looking at a woman in lust? But I've been guilty of it, I just, confess. But of course, one thing going through therapy, and I had a misdemeanor many years ago, and part of the reason why I guess I was kicked out of Mariners Church, but the thing is, the systems work. They give you therapy, they have you become accountable and things like that. These are really good programs for the secular community, especially that need tools to address those problems of thought and action. And so these are things that are good that we have in our systems and law enforcement stuff. But the message is about the woman caught in adultery. And back then, small communities, why they had to the sentencing of death was to get that sin out, because they were in small communities back then, and when someone committed adultery, it tore up families, but it didn't just families, it tore up communities. So it was really a very serious offense on many levels. So when she was caught in adultery and they threw her out there, and the Lord was, they said he was writing in the sand. I'd like to know what he's writing in the sand. But the thing is, he just looked up for a moment and just made one statement. He says, let them who is without sin cast the first stone. Okay? Now I'm going to reach into that, because by the Lord's standards, just looking upon a woman will be, hey fella, little buck there, got a friend. But yeah, just looking upon a woman is considered adultery. So let him who is without sin cast the first stone. Okay? Now, if you don't stand up against the sex offender registry and these things after somebody's paid their debt to society and they're good citizens, I'm going to talk about 4 elements involved in the situation of the woman caught in the very act of adultery. The first would be the accusers and the tempters, to trying to tempt God to come out, tempt Christ to come out in anger against her. That's one element. The second element is is of course the object, which is the woman. She's the person that committed the crime per se, and was convicted. So she was sentenced to death. So and then you have that third element, which is Jesus himself. He was the one that sort of stood up for her by making that comment and putting conviction on the hearts of those accusers. That's amazing. You know, he's that way. He will point out things in our hearts, and things we didn't look at, especially after prayer and stuff and seeking him. And then we just say, well, Lord, that's I didn't think of it that way. You know, he's awesome that way. But that's the third element, was the Lord himself. But there's a fourth element that I've never heard preached on this subject matter. I have never heard it. And it is what happens when there is a ruckus. Obviously, this woman caught in adultery, and she's thrown there before the Lord, and she's already convicted. There must have been a crowd, okay? There was a gathering of people watching what's going on, watching the show, if you will. Well, I'm going to liken that crowd to watching, to see how the Lord would respond, to see how this woman was going to end up under a pile of rocks and all this other stuff. Oh, they were excited to watch a fight or watch the event. So I liken these people to those people that in the church that know there's a right thing to do, but they choose not to do it. They just want to watch it. Now, those are kind of like the ones that don't do anything or stand up for the marginalized, the cast out, standing against the registry, which is a living death. It is evil and it is wrong. The very nature of it screams like those accusers at that woman that committed adultery. Now I want you to see this, because those that are on the registry have paid their debt to society. They have been through therapy. They have been through probation and parole and whatnot. But yet you put them on this endless list to target them and do harm against them and their families. Is that Christian? Is that Christ-like? Those are some questions you need to ask yourself and your church. Where do they stand like Christ to say, you know what? Do you have sin? If you do, why don't you cast the first stone? You see, the churches are the bystanders. They're just kind of like watching the show. And God said something about that too. Jesus says, you know what? I don't like lukewarm Christians. I would rather you be hot or that you be cold. But because you're lukewarm, I'll spew you out of my mouth. This is something to think about, people. Who's been marginalized today? Back in the South where I'm from Texas. You know, back in the slave days, the politicians used to hang a young black male on a barn door and beat him for votes. And let them know that the respectable people, let the pretty people know that we keep our slaves in line. Yeah, vote for me. Make me your governor. Make me your mayor. I take care of my business. Well, we have a different kind of whipping boy today. They put him on a list. They ostracize him and her. Kids as well, they got on that sex offender registry. And it's evil. What are you as an individual Christian? What is your church doing to not be just the crowd, but be like the Lord? Do something about it. Ask questions. Hey, this don't seem right. Something to think about. I think it was Joseph that was falsely accused of raping his boss's wife and put in prison for it, right? I think it was Moses that was he was a fugitive for justice for 40 years for murder, right? The Lord God used him, delivered Israel. You might want to think about who you marginalize, kick out of your churches, and who you have nothing to do with and you don't want to be around. You're taking care of the pretty people, the respectable people, and you got a new whipping boy. Are you just part of the crowd? Is that what the church is too? Well, this is Robert Curtis, brother in the Lord. Y'all have a blessed day.